Like that.
Alright, it's my spot.
We could be got the car wash. I was this close till I came. I was honestly, I was like, oh, I just didn't have time. I'm gonna.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Good.
We're here.
You are here. Glad to see
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Exciting. We got a
I'm
gluten-free, fat-free, no carb pizza.
There you
What's
go.
on the diet plan?
No
I had
calories.
cauliflower pizza last night,
No calories.
and I've been poisoning my son with it too. Poisoning my son. He's digging the cauliflower pizza.
It's really not that bad though.
I like it, man. I like it. Afton's getting into a little bit. JJ's, you know, he likes his normal pizza better.
He's working.
The kid will devour like 3 pieces. He smacks them all over his face, takes some pieces. Pizza's definitely up there in the food groups.
Does he feel the difference between regular and cauliflower?
It's a little sweeter.
I try to, what's that?
A little sweeter.
Yeah.
A little sweeter. And fast. Faster.
Yeah.
The ones I got.
The one that I get from Costco, it's all veggies on it too.
Yeah, I got one, the one that was not packed.
Yeah, it's my veggie day. My veggie day. All right.
Congratulations on your recent book. About 12:30.
12:30, we ready to go? Karn, are we ready or?
I'm ready. You're ready, man.
All right, cool. I don't know if people can hear me in Zoom land or whatever.
Oh yeah, we're unmuted.
All right.
Zoom, can you guys hear okay?
Zoom land.
Zoom land.
Tiffany, Ashley, Emmett,
Yes, we can hear. I can hear you.
thank you.
All right, cool.
Don't be shy, don't be shy.
All right, so we'll get going. Respect everybody's time. Appreciate you guys coming today. Just had a couple of tip points to bring people's attention. Let's see if our clicker's working. All right, so first slide, I think what the point of this class is really to change our thinking, right? We're looking at properties, and for you guys to potentially keep properties as rentals, for you guys to maybe flip properties if that's an interest, or for you guys to work with investors. So we're going to cover a little bit of all three. Who here owns either a rental property or something of the sort? Cool. And anybody flipped homes before? So we'll kind of go over both that stuff. Cool. So what I have here is, bold. I'm in bold, so we put a bold law there. Change your thinking, change your world. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I was talking about your reticular activating system. And really, it's how we're thinking and how we're seeing everything in the world, right? You just bought your new car, which is, you just bought a Tesla, right? Everything that you see out in the world, on the streets, is going to be a Tesla. So this class, hopefully, will have you guys think a little differently about when you're looking at properties, evaluating properties, and coming across deals. Maybe there's an opportunity for you guys to purchase it, partner up and purchase it, or you sell it to an investor that maybe you have a couple opportunities or both things on that. So just kind of give you guys, that's kind of the goal today. So that's your RAS, your reticular activating system. So we're going to talk about learning how to work with investors, why work with investors, why look for investment properties. So one thing to know when you're working with investors that if they're flipping the homes, you have the opportunity to earn multiple commissions on it. You can help on the buy side, you can list the property in the back end. Maybe with your seller, you can earn multiple commissions up front. So you get a couple commissions that way. Also, just getting a better idea of how to find rental properties for people and if they can fix it up and rent it out as well. And then why look for investment properties as well? Really for us, obviously, we don't have a pension, we don't have a retirement fund or anything like that. So we saw, what person in here owns rental properties. It's, really important to start adding to your own portfolio. Of course, the market's changed a little bit. We're going to talk about that and how I'm seeing the market, how you guys are probably seeing the market, and kind of things that we can do different. Maybe there's more opportunities with how that's happening, but I think we all know the benefits of owning real estate is how do we get our hands on properties and then have them paid off in 20, 30 years, 10 years, and then it's able to be an asset for us when it's time to retire. So go to the next slide. Is there something I got to point at for? No. There you go. Okay. All right, so today's topic, bless you. We're going to talk about how to find properties, how investors run their numbers, and how to kind of structure deals. Kind of touch on how much things are costing right now, finding contractors. Should I flip or hold a property? It's kind of like somewhat of a formula that I have. If I'm purchasing a property, am I just going to flip it and take the money up front, or am I going to keep the property as a rental? And then I'll talk a little bit about some books I read, podcasts, things like that for you guys to get more information. This is certainly something to continue to work on. So a little bit about me. Some of you guys know me, some of you guys don't. My name is Bobby Peterson. I've been at Keller Williams for about 5-something years now. I started with a company called 3 Point Realty, and their primary focus was, he was in basketball with 3 points. He flipped houses, he had a property management portfolio, and he sold houses. So I really kind of transferred into real estate, helping him find flips, and quickly learned that this is something that I like to do, and I was also looking for flips for other investors. So it's kind of how I got my feet wet back in 2015. I got my license 2016. I bought my first flip. My mom and I went in on a flip. Obviously, back then, properties were a little less. We put about $10,000 or $15,000 into it each. Made about $40,000 on the deal. My mom and I worked out a split there, and that was my first deal. And ultimately, was able to purchase a property with $30,000, and I found somebody to partner with and go in on it. So it's certainly a good way for any of us to get started. Like I said, 2016, I bought 3 flips. Just kind of give you an idea of those referral sources. One was a hard money lender that gave me a deal. One was a realtor. I was at RE/MAX at the time. I started at 3 Point Real Estate, went to RE/MAX for about 8 months, and then I came here and I've been for about 5.5 years. And then the other one was from a probate attorney. So these are 3 sources that I really pour into still to get a lot of different deals currently. So currently we're on 35 rental properties right now. Afton and I own the majority of them together. We actually just bought a 14-unit property in Rio Linda, which was a pretty exciting property. And it was another example where I got a lead. They called in from a marketing campaign that I'm doing in Baylor and talked about 14 units and the price that he's wanted. And I was like, oh man, there's no way I can do this. And I immediately was like, okay, I don't really know commercial buyers. I know commercial lender or brokers, things like that. Immediately, that was my first thought. I was like, let me call somebody else and see if I can get a commission out of this. And then just started analyzing a bit more, and started putting together in my mind, realized I could take this down. I could do it myself. First, I could partner with somebody if that's how I'm going to do it. We ended up doing some cash out refis on some other properties and were able to purchase the property. So just kind of changing your mindset on how we look at properties. And when those leads come in, how do we evaluate them? I bought a 5-plex in Yuba right when COVID started. I kind of got a good deal on that, like COVID especially. Actually, from our sister-in-law, I got that deal from. You knew about it. I still hit up Cal about some deals. She runs the Yuba County, and Yuba's a good spot to get cash flow property, so I reach out to Cal a lot. Bought a triplex recently in Oak Park. It was actually a duplex when we converted the garage, made it a 3rd unit. So we'll talk about that a little bit. I own a few duplexes that we did owner-occupied financing when I first got into real estate. I lived in one side and rented out the other. Some single-family homes. I have short-term rentals in Oak Park. I'm doing an Airbnb. I've done a room and board before, which is kind of crazy. So I've done kind of everything you could think of in the investing world, and certainly dipped my toes in quite a few things. I've done about 55 flips so far. Purchased 8 so far this year, so still pretty active, about 12 to 15 properties a year. Here's just kind of an example of some kind of crazy one that we did a couple years ago. It was kind of complete fire damage, trashed out, and turned it into a pretty looking property that is in North Highland. Living pretty well.
Are you going to give us details like on these specific properties, like how much did you buy this for? How much did it cost?
I can. I have a breakdown of how to structure a deal, but not like this particular one.
Okay.
I mean, this one, I think I bought it for like $190. I put like $120 into it. The carrying costs were around $20,000 plus acquisition costs. We'll talk about that more.
Okay.
And then the profit on this one, I think I made about $60,000.
Nice.
And Janelle and I were working on that one, like an EXP Robert Lewis. There's always a couple things that progress on it. But this was a very interesting property. I filled in a pool with this one. I feel like
I remember this one.
you would think that that was a different one. But filling in pools isn't always the best thing you think, but then there could be a lot of them. So how to find houses, right? If you guys have questions, just keep this interactive and answer those across. So flipping properties comes from distressed situations. So someone needs to sell fast. They don't want to do the repairs. Going through some type of life crisis, divorce, death, loss of job, back taxes, and deferred maintenance. Now we're heading into a market, right, where things are certainly shifting, and we don't quite know what's going to happen with the market. There's probably going to be some people that lost jobs. There's probably going to be some back taxes. The divorce is still going up with COVID and stuff like that, but sometimes financial issues cause that. So there is some reasons, obviously, to be cautious about what's going on. And at the same time, when panic is taking place in the world and in the economy and your clients and things like that, there often there's some opportunities there where people may be willing to take less or may be able to work something out that's going to make sense for someone. And just overall deferred maintenance. I didn't mention that. So here are some different places to find property. Here's my recent son. He looks like a little Benjamin Button picture. This is him like 2 or 3 days old. Sam is sad that he ruined his skin. He looks, he doesn't look as wrinkled.
Sam up there.
Right? Shit. So how to find houses. MLS, Craigslist, Zillow for sale by owner. I've purchased many properties on Metrolist, and there's still deals on there, and I think there's going to probably be more deals here soon. When you're looking at Metrolist, oftentimes I still like to look at pending ring backups, and kind of reach out to other agents and seeing if something might be going on with that escrow and it could fall out. Maybe there's an opportunity there. Usually when it goes active, obviously the market's shifting again, there's going to be a lot of demand up front. So I often would go towards like the pending ones and see if there's any opportunities there. People still post for sale by owners on Craigslist. I bought deals on there before. Zillow for sale by owners, and I just next we have this is all kind of online stuff: pay-per-click, SEO, Facebook ads. It is expensive, but it works.
What's PPC stand for, Bobby? I'm sorry.
Pay-per-click.
Pay-per-click.
Yeah, so you're kind of buy my house fast or something like that. So I was doing a Facebook campaign for a while, and it was costing about $3,000 or so a month, and certainly was getting a ton of leads from it, and there's opportunities there. Pay-per-click, and then organic is kind of your search and optimization, the SEO. So online certainly works, and there's a lot of people just depending on your budget at the end of the day for some of these things. What's going to work? Driving for dollars.
Did you use the app?
What's
Like Deal Machine or anything?
I was using an app for Deal Machine, yeah. And some of these things is what kind of systems can you implement with your team and yourself. And I downloaded Deal Machine. Deal Machine is essentially an app for driving for dollars. And if you're driving around, you can take a picture right there, and then you can mail them right away. You can skip trace them, and skip trace them. You can get their phone numbers. You can maybe get an email address. You can get a lot of information right there, and then it adds it to a CRM. And you can keep the names going that way. I was doing some driving for dollars a little bit towards the beginning when I was getting interested in investing, but it can be consuming, obviously, especially gas prices are up. But it's kind of one of those things. If you're going around that neighborhood, take a picture, and have opportunity to save it to your database. But that's kind of your sniper approach versus your shotgun approach, right? So I do mail campaigns right now. We probably send 3,000 mailers a month or something like that. Could be expensive, obviously. You're talking about 60 cents per piece, so roughly anywhere like $2,000 or more is kind of my monthly mail budget. I met with a guy last week. It was a really cool opportunity. The guy flips like 45 or 50 homes a year, one of like the top flippers in Sacramento. He does TV, and his name is Sean Struck, American Capital. He spends like $12,000 a month on TV, and I was always kind of wondering, like, what is the return on stuff like this? He says he gets like a 5 or 6x return on it. He spends like $10,000 a month on mail, right? So a lot of these investors that really can have larger marketing budgets, it works. It's always kind of sticking with it, being consistent, just like any other type of campaign that we kind of put motion. Cold calling campaigns. I know Rich has been asking me a lot about cold calling, and I know it's probably more than I know Andre's doing some, but kind of a lot of people are having issues with cold call campaigns because they're getting the carriers are starting to spam phone numbers. I don't know if you guys are kind of aware of that, but cracking down on all type of spam. I mean, if you guys have noticed, we're all getting blown up by different people trying to sell things or different insurances or things like that. Texting campaigns is another thing that a lot of people do. I don't know if you guys get random texts, but because of the properties I own, I'm getting like hit up like every day by various text campaigns, ringless voicemails. So there's a lot of people that do them. As Carnegie and John kind of referenced, they're not legal per se. You get fined, but it is a way that a lot of people are getting properties. Cold calling, you're hitting the do not call list. Texting, you're not supposed to be spamming. Ringless voicemail, it's all something that is certainly frowned upon, but you gotta be careful. Attorneys in all categories is a big resource that I've really built up over the years. So I have a handful of probate and trust attorneys that I work with. I have a couple bankruptcy attorneys, and I got like one divorce attorney. But I really started that kind of sphere or whatnot, or my database in that regard, and called them for years and years and years. And it really started to pop like 2 years ago. But it takes a long time to kind of get attorneys, but they're an excellent source of referrals, fiduciaries as well. Trust administration, things like that. Usually when those properties are held by a family member for so long, there's going to be a lot of deferred maintenance.
Do you find yourself sending a lot of business away as well? I mean, is it just kind of like you talk to them every once in a while, that relationship, or do you find yourself sending a bunch of other directions?
I try, but it's tough. It's kind of like a lender sending us deals, right? They work with 20 agents or something like that, you know, we want to give them a deal per se. So it's hard for them to reciprocate when they have a bunch of different realtors. So one of them, I basically give business to the one guy that kind of gives me the most deals. And then over time, I think it's just kind of creating a value proposition, right? And just like whatever the company's called, that's helping to fix up the properties and sell them later. So that's kind of my value proposition, like Steve was doing. What's the company called that we have?
Open door.
Keller offers, ready to sell, Keller offers.
Keller offers, yeah. So helping you fix up the property and then sell it. So I've been offering like that for a while. Hey, I'll pay for cleanup, hauling. I'll help you with like estate sales and you know, if they need a cash offer or if they need you know, the house to be fixed up a little bit, at least to get it financeable and then sell it. So that's been a good opportunity. Certainly good.
Would that be like a joint venture?
No, I would get reimbursed. I'm basically just paying for all the expenses and they're kind of reimbursing. I know some people have done joint ventures with sellers and I've offered it, but I've never actually kind of fully gone through it. Some people, it can get complicated. Francine and I were talking
Oh my
to this
God.
lady. And it's just, Francine and I did a couple of exactly. Where, you know, you want to make sure you trust that person, right? And some of them, you know, sometimes we're in this type of situation, reason why they're in that situation. So I'm trusting them and putting a bunch of dollars in, you know, their house can be risky and then you have different things.
Yeah, I would say, so have you came to a situation where you did that and then all of a sudden they had to cancel?
No.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Okay.
Way to go, Jose.
This is
Thanks.
not going to win. And that's why it's kind of really feeling them out, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the market's changing though. You know, it's all good and great when you put some money into a property and then it sells right away. Just like we're talking with Steve Lamoffian. He's an agent in Roseville. He probably has like 40 or 50 of these type of transactions. And, you know, now that properties may not be selling as quickly, you know, there certainly could be some uncomfortable conversations coming up. So something to be aware of. So anyways, attorneys is a great source for referral leads for fixers or any type of listings. Your sphere, obviously working with realtors. I work with a bunch of people in this office. I've gotten deals from lenders, oddly enough. Like just people kind of knowing me on Facebook because lenders are, you know, they're working in these transactions in a referral source as well when somebody has real estate questions. So I've gotten a number of leads from lenders, escrow officers, hard money lenders. I think I mentioned that before. And wholesalers. So wholesalers is kind of like your for the most part unlicensed middleman that's out there doing some of the grunt work, I'll say, or the dirty work. They're calling campaigns, they're door knocking, they're mailing, they're doing whatever, and they're getting a fee out of the middle. And it's kind of crazy what some of the fees are that kind of set in stone in the middle. Like I've seen them make like $40,000 or $30,000, and then just a normal commission type thing. But it's kind of crazy. It's a little obviously unregulated, and there's different ways that they kind of structure it with the escrow company versus the seller being transparent and understanding what that fee is versus whatever is being worked out. But certainly gray area wholesaling when you're licensed. Your network. So there's a ton of REIs, real estate investing meetups, finding mixers, getting out. So before I got into real estate, I was in insurance and I was part of this young professional network with Sacramento Real Estate Association. So I've been pretty connected with a lot of people outside of this office in the industry. So that's really kind of helped me be a resource for people, which, you know, for flips and things like that. So just really kind of reaching out to them, letting them know that I buy properties. Anyways, the market, so some of these slides were kind of more addressed like a couple of weeks ago, but the market's competitive. Means we are having to get a little more creative. So I think even so, like a lot of these different kind of tips and tricks, when you're finding an investor, right, I've noticed, you know, when the market is competitive and you have a lot of different people putting offers on the same property, kind of finding an investor that's a little more creative. And when I was doing that years ago and I was finding properties for other people, it's like, are you able to add square footage? Like, you know, you buy a house in East Sac and it's 1,000 square feet and you add like 600 or 700 square feet. That's like an opportunity that I've seen a lot of investors that I've kind of found. And then you're able to get more commissions out of it, right? Converting an attic. I did this on one of my flips and actually did it at our house, which was kind of cool. We added 600 square feet in our attic. Bumped out the house that's adding square footage on the back. So finding investors that have different options that they can utilize. Just a question, if you're talking to different investors of, hey, do you do this, this, this? So then when you're coming across these opportunities, you find that little 1,000 square foot house in East Sac and it's a decent deal, but if they add 1,000 square feet, then obviously it pencils out a little better for that person. Converting a garage to extra units, I mentioned that I did one of those. It's very common. California has made creating ADUs and more housing a lot easier. And it's also an opportunity as you're looking at properties for yourself to purchase, right? I just bought a property in Woodland, and it had a 3-bedroom, 1-bath in the front, and they already converted the garage, which was obviously a lot easier. Everything's already done, but I needed to get it permitted. So the permitting process is certainly a little easier right now than what it was years ago. And another way for you yourself to analyze properties, can I convert this garage to create an extra unit, which creates some extra income? Or am I finding an investor that's able to think outside the box and maybe they'll do this, and then you can also help analyze those numbers for them as they're doing their underwriting and figuring out if it's a fit for them. Building an ADU, obviously that's big as well. It's not as cost effective, right? Doing ground up construction, which is expensive. Like you see online fixers like, oh, build an ADU back there. That's not cheap. It's like probably 150,000, maybe more than that for someone to build an ADU. And no structures there. You got to pour concrete footings. You got to do all the utilities. You got to frame it up, a roof, all that. So you convert a garage, or Rich isn't in here. Rich and I are working on a property. The house had 2 detached garage. Like, oh, boom. I have a guy that I said that's like converting ADUs and wants them. Like, that's a great property. Anytime you see a property with 2 garages, there's got to be a buyer that's someone interested in that. So just something to kind of keep the wheels turning a little differently. Yes.
Now, they have the grants now for the ADU. I know Cal Half and stuff does. Have you checked that?
I haven't. But still, I mean, if you're building it, you mean for converting or building?
I'm not sure they're doing $40,000 grant.
Yeah. I mean, ground up, I think like, contractors are $200-300 a foot. So if you're building like a 400 square foot ADU, plus the permits, plus this, that, and the other, it can be expensive. So converting a garage is way easier. The one that I did, it was probably, $15,000 or something like that. And then the deal that I just got at Woodland, I'm just getting it permitted. It's already there. It's detached. It's got its separate access in the alley. It's perfect. I'm working on a house in East Sac right now that has a detached garage in an alley, and I'm talking to different people like, oh, you got to convert it. I mean, when you're flipping, it doesn't totally make sense judging on your timelines, right? It just kind of depends how you look at your numbers. When you're looking at it as a rental or a short-term rental in East Sac, then you can have huge benefits as a short-term rental and as a long-term rental. If you're adding $1,500 on your income and you can add, it only costs $30,000 to convert, you're getting your money back in 2 years, right? That's a good deal. So yeah, buying, as I said, buying homes can make more sense for ADUs and, when you're looking at value add. Any questions on that stuff? Yes.
So if it is a home that only has the 1 garage and you're going to convert it, you're still finding that holds value and that people aren't upset now that there's just no garage.
Yeah. So I mean, certainly it's kind of yin and yang. You
Yeah.
probably want to talk to an appraiser about that, but I think storage sheds back there. I certainly think living quarters is going to be value for garage.
Okay.
But they're probably deducted a little bit. But at the end of the day, like I saw Ryan Lindquist put something out when he was he got questions on evaluating ADUs. In reality, it's tough for an appraiser because you have to look for comps, right? Who's to say that the comp in whatever neighborhood? It's probably not likely in the Tillmans, but if you're in an older neighborhood, they're more common like detached garages or attached. Maybe not units of normal house living spaces above. Anyways, it's for like someone who's investing or has a family member. They're going to value that property. I think in our neighborhood, like I saw a house sell for like 1.4 with an ADU, but in reality, the home should have been worth 900 or $1 million or something like that. So it's all on the consumers what they think it's valued as. And once again, especially right now, right, the Woodland deal that I just bought, I was kind of iffy about it. Market's turning, like analyzing stuff. But it's like, okay, just like that owner-occupied investor, right? If you buy that property for $500,000 or $600,000 and your mortgage is, $3,500 or who knows what it is now, $4,000, and you can get $1,500 for rent on that ADU, or if you're doing short-term rental, maybe you're getting $2,000, right? You're offsetting your costs quite a bit, and I really think that's where people are going to be looking at now, especially, and they have been the past couple of years, but now rates are crazier. It's going to be something that.
Are you required to put in carbon
There are certain areas that they're, parking certainly can be like, I sold a duplex on 65th Street. Like I said, I got this buyer that will convert to ADUs. I'm telling you, go find that buyer. Because it makes it so much easier to work with an investor if they're creative, right? I don't know how he's gonna make it work, but it was 2 units and then there's a garage in the middle. It's on 65th Street, it's a busy street. And I think parking is one of the bigger things with the city where they want to make sure the streets aren't crowded.
When you can't park.
But exactly. But I think if you're near bus stops, I've heard, or public transportation or things like that, there's some more leeway on things like that. But certainly the no storage and the parking are certainly things to consider. I think it depends on the area. The one that I converted to 80 wasn't like Oak Park on 6th Ave, and street wasn't great for parking. They still allowed it. So I mean, we have a housing crisis in every aspect of it. So certainly having more rental properties is what they're looking for. So this is kind of cut off. Structuring the loan. So I think these numbers changed just a tad, but basically going to talk about how to structure a property, and we're going to go over a scenario of when you find a home, in either for yourself, for if you're looking for it for an investor, or whatever the case is, just kind of give you an idea what they're looking for. So find a hard money lender. If you guys have questions on that, let me know. So they lend on the property, not the equity. So I'll get a lot of questions on, some people don't qualify for a certain type of property, right? Usually they're looking at the equity of the property. And they usually want to see what's called an ARV of what the purchase price is, the construction, and then your resale value. Usually you want to see 70%, 70 to 30 threshold between purchase, rehab, and in between the resale. But they're going to want, I think it's 15% down now, whatever, because they changed the rule. So 10% usually, and if you do volume like myself, the numbers can be a little different. Most investors like it probably be 15% down, and then they'll want some costs. They'll want some money on the rehab. So if you have, got a scenario on the next one, but if you have a $300,000 property, just do 10. They look for about $30,000 down, and they're going to want you to bring some money in for the closing costs, and then they're going to want some money on the rehab costs as well, 20%. So how much money do you need? Acquisition costs on a $300,000 home, you need $30,000 for the down payment. Obviously, acquisition costs is the escrow, the title. You have a lending title policy. You have things like that. I say, for my numbers, I say roughly about $12,000. Your rehab budget in this scenario, let's say it's $60,000, and you'll need a percentage of that, so about $12,000 there. So to buy a fixer in this scenario, it's about $54,000 to buy a $300,000 house. Your carrying costs, and basically we're going over this scenario, how much money do you need to purchase a property, and how much money is kind of the ongoing expenses. So if you're consistent, you have hard money expenses while you're paying the loan. The loans generally work out about 10% is what your interest is. When you buy a hard money loan, you have high interest payments on it. So 10% of $300,000 is $30,000 divided by 12. So $1,200 a month is your hard money carrying costs. And then also, you're going to have to pay your contractors as you go. So as I said, you have a rehab budget of $60,000. So you put $12,000 down. So essentially, you have what is called a draw account from the lender, that they're going to have $48,000 roughly in this account that they're going to be able to give you money on. So you don't have to pay for all your rehab expenses. And different lenders will work out different scenarios, right? I was just on the phone with another one. As I said, they're changing them a little bit. Some will give you 100% of those rehab costs, so your down payment would be less. Some will give you a percentage of it. So in this scenario, we have $48,000 for your draw account. So you're paying your contractors. When I first got started, I had a credit card, I had my Home Depot cards, I had things like that. So that paid for the materials, and then I'm paying my contractors as I go. And then as the progression of the completion of the project's going, you tell your lender, and they give you money on your draw. So then they'll give you portions of that $48,000. So you don't, when you buy these properties, you don't need the whole rehab costs, and you don't need the whole down payment. This is kind of a rough. Any questions on? I broke that down.
Are you paying your contractors for labor only? You're doing all material, or?
Yeah, that is how I do it. I have some contractors that'll do both. I project manage most of my projects. I hire licensed electricians, licensed plumbers and HVAC, roof guys. But for like cabinets and paint and floors and stuff like that, and demo, I'm kind of project managing a decent amount of that. So I do save some money on contractor costs. Kind of heard contractors are expensive.
Are you buying in bulk now for the same vinyl, same paint?
No, so I don't even restore it. Yeah, and then plus like costs are fluctuating and changing so much. Like it's kind of like maybe if I'd have done it 6 months ago, but right now like what I'm paying for flooring is 20% higher than what I was paying months ago. So I don't want to have this big inventory of expensive flooring. My father-in-law had a story of this, which was kind of got burned a little bit. We last year when the fencing crisis was going on, right, or the lumber crisis, right, and we couldn't get. I had this huge property needing a fence, but another property. They sell them in packages. It's called lumber package when you get enough. And he's like, hey, screw this. We're gonna get all this wood and have it at the house. So we got like 4 or 5 packages of this lumber, and it was pretty much at the height. But when you're going this time period, they were sold out. Like it was the strangest thing. Janelle just left, but she was getting her fence done. And I remember a contractor like they couldn't find fence boards. Like it just sounds insane, but it was happening last year. So like we needed this package of fence boards. So we bought it at a premium price, but I guess we had an inventory. But then by the time things settled down, like we had all this expensive wood that was pointless. So I don't know. What I have a pretty good Home Depot account where I spend quite a bit of money. Yeah, I spent probably like $300,000 or $400,000 at Home Depot last year, and then this year I think I'm like slightly above that. But when you do that, they give you a lot of bulk discounts. So they'll give you I get like 15% off almost everything that they have there. And then if you bring a whole house full of stuff like floors, cabinets, whatever, fixtures, toilets, plumbing, electrical, they'll give you a contractor's price, or they'll bid it out a little bit, and they could come down on that price. You can negotiate if you have an entire house of stuff, and anybody can do that, not just me. But if you go to their contractor desk or something like that, they'll work with you on price if you have like something for the entire house. But it's like, where are you going to put all that stuff? And for me on the projects, like I get worried on people breaking in, so I don't want like a household full of stuff, in case things are.
So you're saying, so on a $300,000 house, $30,000 for down payment, 12 for rehab, so you really only need $54,000, but then you're able to pull that $48,000 draw.
Correct. Yeah.
Is there a fee with that? Is there anything else?
On the draw? Well, the draw, the different lenders do different stuff. I was using this lender that just wrote checks, and there were no fees. Some lenders have like a quick inspection. They'll charge $200 to get your draw fund. I usually just, sometimes I do no draws because I don't need funds, I guess, or sometimes I do a couple draws throughout. It just kind of depends how you want to do it. But they'll give you money as you go. And at the beginning, like I said, those first couple flips, maxed out. I have my credit card, I have a Home Depot card. Obviously, things, a little different market. You want to make sure you have reserve. I certainly leveraged a lot and kind of things worked out. And then I said, pay your contract. Go, withdraw. Any questions on this? We'll kind of go to the next slide. The rest of the scenario. So most investors are working on the same numbers, right? A lot of people, they're buying with hard money because they're able to do more deals. So generally I'll have like 3 to 5 projects going on at once, and I'm able to do that because my money's going towards a handful of different properties, because I could have some being sold right now, I could have some in production, and I could have some purchasing. And if I put all my cash in like 2 deals or 3 deals or something like that, then I'm kind of stuck on other opportunities. So once again, reevaluating my strategy with the market shifting a little bit, but I'm still actively purchasing. So yeah, most investors are buying with hard money. Usually a deal is purchased, it's expensive acquisition costs. So, when people ask me, I think a common misconception is that when you buy a property, you buy it for $300,000, you sold it for $450,000, and maybe you put $70,000 into it. They're like, oh man, you just made a killing. You made like $60,000, $70,000 or something like that. But the point is, there's a lot more that goes into it. Acquisition costs, the carrying costs, your insurance is a lot more expensive on it's called a vacant policy when you're doing a flip. So that's more. You're paying points and fees on your hard money, right? So they get a commission as well. So that's escrow and title and things like that. So as I said, roughly about $10,000 to $15,000. The carrying costs, right? roughly at 4 to 6 months that you're holding. Usually I finish the projects in 3 months, about 12 weeks, and you have current market about a month of marketing time and then a month of sell time, so things could be adjusted. So roughly about $2,500 a month is my hard money expenses. So my carrying cost, let's say, is about $12,500. We're just looking at a scenario with profit. Your utilities and taxes are about $300 or $400 a month. Your construction costs in this example was about $65,000. Resale closing costs, we're familiar with those. If I'm working with a realtor, I'm paying them to sell the property. If not, anywhere from 4 to 6% is kind of what your closing costs are going to be on the back end. So if I'm doing a 400 in this property, this example, let's say it's sold for 450,000, and the closing costs are about 25,000. So where does that leave us? We had a $300,000 purchase. We have 12,500 for the acquisition costs, 12,500 carrying costs. The construction of the house was 60,000. To sell the property is 25. In this example, you made about $40,000 profit. You sold it for 450,000. So in general, I was looking at some stats of the country. Flippers are making about 40,000. Yes.
So the builders that bring you deals, do they get the listing when you're done?
Yes. Yeah. So right now, I don't list any of the properties. Janelle kind of lists them, and then if they're brought by somebody else, I have them list them on the back.
What is the deal with that? Is it you can't or you can?
There's
is it conflict of interest.
There's kind of both. It's all the above. Like there's a conflict of interest. There's policy kind of can be a little iffy. I think when you're selling a property that's yours. So it's just not an arm's length transaction.
One of our biggest factors as a brokerage is the E&O policy.
Right.
It's very hard to. The liability goes through the roof when it's your property. You are a licensed realtor. You did the work on it. You're basically going to be expected to know and disclose absolutely everything possible about that house. And if a buyer comes in and finds one thing wrong with it, you got problems trying to get that covered by insurance.
Does it matter if it's a team member? Like say you have a team.
Yeah, check into that more. There's kind of ins and outs to it. So So there's more to that scenario with our office, but for the most part, it's a conflict of interest. Like when when I was selling my own properties, it can be kind of weird sometimes if you're negotiating on your property and it's like, hey man, talking directly with the seller versus having that middleman. It's kind of all why we hire realtors and the most be that middleman anyways to kind of have that layer of protection. And it's a good idea no matter what. Like I just had one that they got a contract, the buyers, wrote non-contingent, as is, and I don't honestly like those. I want them to do their inspections. They waived the home warranty. I was going to provide them with a home warranty anyways, just to kind of cover your own basis of making sure that, hey, you're fully aware of what's going on at the house. Your home warranty's there in case anything comes up. And even so, like I've had, stuff that's popped up, like AC or plumbing or whatever, like send people out and make sure it's taken care of first couple months or something.
You just feel like it's better to just do that than
For sure. And most of them happen. If something happens between the first 20 days. So I have a story of one that this girl that used to work in this office. They wrote an as-is offer and no contingencies, and the house I guess was in Del Paso and it was hooked up to septic. Right, except it wasn't. It was I bought it from another flipper, right? And so it is like a learning curve for me. I get most of my inspections ahead of time or during the transaction, but I haven't always stuck a camera down the sewer line. And I've started to a lot more frequently. But this particular house, they bought it as is. It was competitive market. It was 3 years ago, and they called me, a couple days after, and the sewer line. There's no sewer line, and it's not going to a septic, so it's just dropping out the house.
What?
Yeah, kind of crazy. And they didn't do their inspection. I don't know if it wasn't reliable. I had zero idea. No, I didn't know anything about it. But anyways, just did the right thing and kind of sent my guys out there.
How much was
Dug a
that?
sewer line. It was like 4,000. Wasn't that
Oh,
bad?
that's not too bad. Okay.
No, but I mean, in theory, I guess I could have negotiated or whatever. It was like, just doing the right thing on all these.
Yeah.
And that one is complicated because if a house has a septic, there's no city tap, right? So the city had mercy on us too. Usually the city can charge you about $5,000 to $10,000 to put their clean out in and tap. So they tapped it for free, and then we dug the trench to there. But anyway, it's just an example of like having that middle person, not negotiating yourself, having a warranty, having all the inspections. Like it's just good protection for yourself, especially when you're doing more of them. You just want to be careful. So the point here is that this is a pretty cash-heavy business, right? If you have like 5 properties going at once, and you got $3,000 or $2,000 or so carrying costs, that's a lot of checks you're writing every month, as well as the contractors and things like that. So, but overall, this is kind of the scenario that you can look at about $54,000 to purchase the property. And as I said at the beginning, when I first got started, I'm partnering with other people. I'm using other people's money, finding that rich family member, uncle, family friend, whatever it is. Right now, I have a guy that has about $3 million or so, and he's been funding the purchase and the rehab costs. And I'll give him a percentage off. And finding someone like that obviously is nice, or just having someone to partner with on the down payment. So what I'm doing now, because I'm being more cautious about where things are going, and I want to make sure I have a good amount of reserves and everything, is I'm partnering with people, and obviously everybody's money is losing money right now, right? It's in the stock market. Took a hit. It's like down 20% this year. From January to now. The past, like, I don't know what it is today. I saw it down a little bit, but 8% in the past week. No matter where money's sitting, inflation's 8%. We're losing money, right? But point being, I still feel confident in real estate overall. I'm partnering with people that they're aware of the risk, but they're kind of bringing in a down payment. I'm borrowing the first and making sure that we have more funds spread out to gauge, the last slide I said 4 to 6 months was normally kind of the average that I was seeing for my turn times. And sometimes there'll be more, sometimes there'll be less. And now I'm kind of looking at like 8 to 9 months or something like that. And if it's for a slightly bigger deal, I'm even like, hey, we need 12 months of carrying costs kind of brought in. And the Woodland deal I just did, I had a partner bring in $40,000, and then their carrying costs. I was looking at this pretty big Elk Grove deal, kind of the same thing.
So when you have investors that come in here, what is a range or break?
Well, it depends, but so the guy that I mentioned that brings in all the funds and the down payment, I kind of offer 12%, and that's great. Yeah, that's a great deal to work out. But the specifically they're on the first deed of trust when you do that, right? So you lend that. You're borrowing money. That's the first position. For this guy that I mentioned, my family friend, he's sending me the purchase and the rehab. He's in first position. If I'm borrowing from, Tri-Point Capital, whatever, that's my hard money lender. That's my first position loan. And then if I'm borrowing the down payment, they're either in second position if that's how if they want it recorded on the lien when it's with the county and closes, or you're kind of on a handshake transaction.
Is that Corby?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've used Corby, but I kind of have some other shops now that I use, but that's just an example. So point being though, when you're partnering with somebody, a lot of the ones I have done have been handshake transactions. Market's been good, obviously things are a little different, but I've done like addendums in writing, kind of. I have had other people send me like contracts of what you can work out with somebody, but obviously it depends on how well you know them. If it's a close family friend or your family member, maybe not as big of a deal as long as they understand the risk. But point being that everyone's kind of losing money in this market right now, or they won't put money in real estate.
Are you purchasing under a Corp, LLC, and what are the tax implications of those factored into your?
So I purchased with the LLC. So yeah, 2 entities, one for our sales and then one for the flips. And with that, tax implications are, the main benefit is that you don't pay the FERPTA. But yeah, so when a seller sells an investment property, they pay about 3.3% tax, and it's a withholding for the state. I think it is state or the IRS. Yeah. So I don't have to pay that up front, which, they're holding money or they're not holding money. The tax implications at the end of the year, flipping houses is ordinary income after you do it so many times. So it doesn't really matter much. Like, there's a difference of long-term capital gains or short-term versus, flipping an LLC. As anything I do is seen as real estate activity, and it's just ordinary income. If you're doing maybe onesie twosies or something, maybe you can get a different tax bracket. But usually, they're going to go off your income. I know capital gain, long-term capital gains is like 15 or 20%, so it's a little less. Short-term capital gains is higher. So obviously, owning rental properties is kind of your big benefit when you have depreciation, and kind of the benefits of holding it longer can be better. So working with investors is kind of just giving you a brief overview on. So it can be hard when you're working with somebody specifically looking at MLS properties. So it's kind of be careful if you're that person submitting offers all the time on fixers on MLS and when they first go active, because they're going to get 5 to 10 offers. I think still, I heard someone recently wrote an offer on something on MLS and they're still getting a lot of activity. So these are just a few questions you can kind of check with the investor that maybe you want to work with. Do you work on the properties yourself? And this is, when you're analyzing that criteria, are they doing the work and not hiring a contractor? Obviously, they're going to have a better margin than myself. Do you use cash? I mentioned that hard money can be expensive. You're paying points up front, carrying costs, things like that. So that can be something to set your mark. So cash buyers, and contractors will have margins that are better. Will you do buy and holds? Do you need inspections and contingencies? It's kind of a big thing. Usually when I submit offers, like I'm doing a walkthrough and I'm good with how it looks, right? If it's a raised foundation, it seems like there's like quite a bit of pest damage or something like that. Then I'll have someone crawl into the house, but I can walk their house and know like windows, roof, panel, HVAC, whatever. Pretty much write a non-contingent offer just from me walking through the house. I'm doing it quite a few times. But working with an investor, it's like if you have that contingency period, that can always be a hiccup when they're purchasing a property, and obviously you want to make sure they know what they're doing. How quickly can they close? Usually when I'm purchasing properties, it's 14 days or less, sometimes 10, sometimes less than that. So having an idea if you're working with that investor, how quick. Most hard money lenders can close, within 10 to 14 days. So I kind of put on here how to find contractors. So a lot of people have been kind of having issues finding good laborers and things like that. I was at Home Depot sometimes. I was asking the people kind of running around plumbing stuff, like, plumber, can I get a bid? And they had flooring or electrical stuff or HVAC. I remember asking a couple guys that had like, carts of sheetrock and stuff like that. Oh, I need a bid on sheetrock. So over time, when I've done quite a few, have quite a few going at the same time, you need more and more vendors. And even so, like we're always looking for that good pest guy or that roof guy or whatever the case is. So, Home Depot, honestly,
It's kind of like your way.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that I kind of project manage everything, go to Home Depot in the morning. The Pro Desk, you can ask the Pro Desk at Home Depot, and they'll have contractors that they can refer. Your network at investor meetups, like there's one in Roseville. That's a pretty big one, and then there's one in Arden. Trying to think of it, but there's like 50 to 100 people that go to these meetups, and it's a great way to find contractors, great way to find wholesalers, great way to find hard money lenders, all of the above. Like it's a good network. And I just mentioned I'm always looking for good vendors and stuff. Give you guys somewhat of an idea, like when I'm purchasing properties, and this is a beautiful landscape job. Kind of what things cost. I mentioned that floors are going up. Roughly, you can get a fairly attainable flooring contractor is $2 a foot to install, and about materials are about $2. Paint roughly about $2 to $2.50 a square foot. Kitchens kind of can vary obviously for what you're putting in, but for flipping numbers like 7 to 12,000. Your bathrooms about 6 to 8. HVAC kind of around 10,000 is what I see. Windows about 200 to 300 per window. Hot water. Landscaping, it depends what you do. Obviously, this is what I used to do all the time. Put in sod these days. put in some sprinklers, making it look a little prettier, and just dropping a bunch of parts. Demo, something like I always run my numbers, and for some reason demo slips my mind. Demo's getting really expensive. Like the dumpster, everything's. The dumpsters cost like $750. They used to cost like $450 when I started. But everything. And then obviously the laborers to do the demo and bring everything there. So demo can cost anywhere from like $5,000 or so. I think there was something else I was gonna say. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys have noticed on inflation, but I feel things are a lot higher than 8%, especially in like the construction. I think like HVAC ducts I noticed have gone up like 20 to 30%. They're saying floors 30%, like your appliances 30%. So at least in the industry I'm very familiar with, it definitely seems a lot higher than 8%. Any questions on like repairs? So how did I kind of obtain a lot of the properties that I had? So I bought all these properties. I certainly did not put 20 or 25%. Never did until this last which was the 14 unit. That was a big chunk down. But usually I'm buying, rehabbing, refinancing, rent, and repeat. When I'm buying these properties, the goal is to net about $1,000 a month. And usually kind of works out to, that's maybe for a duplex about $1,000 a month. So maybe about like 500 a unit or so. And it does vary with how you run it, right? If you're self-managing the property, it's probably going to be a little less than that. And then factoring in some repairs and things like that is kind of where I'm on the safe side. So the benefits of holding the property is you're not being taxed on the sale. Farm was asking about how I pay taxes. So if I'm making $40,000 on a flip, paying 30% or whatever it is at the end of the year, you're making $28,000, maybe $25,000. At the end of the day, right, we're paying taxes on any income that we have. So you're going to pay taxes no matter what. But if you keep the property, which has been my greatest kind of, I guess, composure, right? Because when you get these properties, like you can sell them and make a good amount of money, right? You can make 40, 50, 60,000, and I kind of just eased my mind and be like, okay, I'm gonna be okay renting it out and only making like $500 a month before. Obviously, it could take a while to get that amount that you could flip the property, but in the long run, obviously prices have shot up like crazy. And when you're analyzing rental properties, it's all based on how it can cash flow, how it can net, as well as comps, but it's really more so on how the numbers pencil out. So because I've kept properties for a long period of time, I have done pretty well with what my net worth is. At the end of the day, it's only relevant if you sell the property. But when you have these properties that you built up over time, I was able to purchase that 14-unit property by refinancing a bunch of other ones, pulling some equity out, and being able to shift it over. So it's kind of how you have certain properties, you can leverage them to buy other properties. And obviously interest rates are going up a little bit. It's all evaluating what that looks like. I'm still kind of a component of home equity line of credits. That's kind of a good way for you guys to get started too, if you own your primary residence. You could, as I said, I'm borrowing money at about 10%. Borrow money on your primary house around 5 to 6%. It's a lot better than what the hard money lender work for. You get a long-term appreciation, obviously, when you hold the properties. And then you can own the properties for less than 20% down. So as I mentioned, when you're buying a flip, right, you can purchase it with about 10 or 12% down, and then you can use the equity that you built up by rehabbing the property to refinance, and you're able to get to hold all these properties at less than 20 or 25% down. If I were to put that amount down on all these properties, you're talking about 100 to 150,000 per property. So this burn method is going to be a lot more beneficial when you're purchasing properties and have the ability to rehab it and rent it out. Any questions on kind of ins and outs of that?
Have you had tenants just destroy the properties?
On my rentals?
Mm-hmm.
No, not yet. I mean, probably will happen.
You're
But
talking about property management?
yeah, I mean, it's for the most part, it's the ones that I'm buying, they're trashed out, and moving them, and then fixing them up, and then renting them out, either short-term rentals or long-term. So,
Do you guys manage them yourself?
no, we hired a property manager last year. Yeah. it was probably when I was at like 12 units, so I was self-managing, and then we got to as many as we have. It's a lot complicated to do.
Tiffany on Zoom wants you to repeat about the HELOC and
Yeah, so a home equity line of credit is something like your credit union can get for you. So essentially, you're taking a home equity line of credit on your primary residence. You can also take them on investment residence as well. But just like any other lender, they're going to go off a loan to value. So if your property, you owe $200,000 and your property's worth $400,000, you can pull a loan to value of either 90 or 80%. So you could pull out maybe 120 or 100,000 in that scenario. So once again, you can use that money to be your down payment, right? Instead of you borrowing money from a friend or family and working out whatever split with them, you can borrow money from your primary residence at 6%. Obviously, you want to be cautious and make sure that you're making the right decision, that the property that you're buying makes sense. But I've taken HELOCs out and certainly utilize them. If you have enough equity, right, you could just buy them with the HELOC funds, and then you don't pay the points to the hard money lender, you don't pay the interest of the carrying costs, and you just have a lot more flexibility, and you're only paying about 5 or 6%. Once again, rates are going up, so something to consider, but as long as you're buying and analyzing it correctly, it should be okay. Any other?
How do you keep track of all the different loan payments you need to make?
Just spreadsheet. I mean, they're all on a. Are you talking about for the hard money?
The hard money, the HELOCs.
They're all on auto draw. Yeah.
Okay.
So the company I'm using right now. If you guys want more hard money questions, you can certainly ask me, and I have some good resources. But they just set up and take them out every month. The previous company I did use, which was TriPoint, was a lot more complicated. I did have to write checks every month, and that kind of sucked. So recap, how to get started. So finding deals for other investors, you can get a couple commissions on it. Find a mentor. Find one of these these meetups and find someone to work with. And sometimes I do joint ventures. You can partner with myself sometimes or other people. Podcasts. Bigger Pockets is a huge one that I listen to religiously. And there's always good episodes on either buying properties yourself, doing owner-occupied buying, multifamily investing, flipping, things like that. Definitely check it out. Using other people's money and partnering with somebody. Home equity line of credit, credit cards, your own credit. Talk to lenders and connect with contractors. Network's been the biggest piece for me. That's kind of helped me continue and keep the business going. So.
And another thing, y'all don't be surprised if you're talking to someone, especially a hard money lender or another investor, like, you got a deal. I was like, well, I'm going to check with Bobby down the hallway. Nathan was like, I already hit Bobby up. So,
yeah, a lot of people can be connected in the same circles, and I do know a lot of the wholesalers try to be in front of as many people as I can, which can help them out.
And it's meetup.com. If you type in like real estate investor, tell about all the meetups.
Yeah, the two good ones is one's in Roseville. I think David Osborne runs it, and then there's another one, Arden.
What's a pond?
Yeah. So there's a couple, and then there's one in the Curtis Park area by Sierra 2, Lexus. So there's a bunch of them out there. There's more than that. Those are the three that I know, but certainly network connections.
Have you hired any cold callers?
I have. I've done it in the past. Because it's just kind of me running the show to an extent. It's like we have our sales division and things out right now. So I've been helping more with sales and then kind of juggling flips as well, management, property management. Having like put together a full-fledged systems like cold callers and things like that. It's been an interest, but then there's so many different regulations going on with cold calling and spamming and things like that. Like I said, I know Rich has been having some struggles with some of their dialers, and I think Andre has as well. But you certainly get a lot of leads when you're pulling these different lists. Like the lists that I pull are probates and code evictions, say evictions, code violations, different things like that. There's some opportunities there. And you can call those numbers, you can mail them.
How do you scrub though? Because I try to do the not call. They want like a fee or something. Is there like a free service where you can scrub them?
There is, yeah. I used to scrub them, and then I didn't care as much. I mean, you can get
What is the
fined.
fine?
What is it?
How much?
Oh, that's a lot.
Is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
For the ground ball,
I would. Yeah.
like 11 grand.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. But I mean, in reality, how many?
We'll make the Bobby's money, don't
Who's getting spam called like every day?
Oh, I just had to tell a guy to fuck off.
Who's turning them in?
No, I don't have time for that.
I can't drop it out, I try every day.
Well, you don't turn them in, Bobby, it's not the people that are sitting there working.
Yeah, I know.
Figure out how to get it.
I
I looked once.
They
and I was like,
keep
I don't know
things
how to
going.
do it.
So
Yep. I
They're-
was like, I don't know how to do it anyway.
House
Yeah.
working days of our lives, they're gonna be.
there are lists that are you can scrub them all, and then like a lot of people they're having virtual assistants do initial. I don't know if they're tracking them down in the Philippines or something, but they do the initial cold call, and then you have like a warm lead, right? Your closers
Yeah.
or whatnot. Some people do that, and then that'd be me or someone else on the team. That would do the warm leads. You know, if you're doing the full-fledged calling campaign, I'd hire like a virtual assistant. I don't know.
Let it fall on them first.
Yeah, chase them down in the Philippines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Any other questions, you guys? And yeah, have you guys ever come across any properties?
Do
I'm
those
always
keys
looking
actually
at mine.
work? That's my.
Yeah.
That's only 2, 3, and 12 units, right?
This, yeah, 2 out of the 14. Yeah. Thanks for attending, guys. Yeah.
Would you go to this, guys?
Yeah. Oldenburg, not Oldenburg.
Hi.
Yeah, we're in the